Okay, so for the sky, we're going to start with the sky. For the sky, we're going to use titanium buff and a touch of cerulean blue in it. Not much, just a bit. So the whole idea is to keep the background soft. I put a bit of more water in my color because it's very thick right now. I take a bit of more blue in here. The more I go down, I'm going to add more blue. That's nice. Adding that blue softly in there at the bottom, more blue at the bottom, is gives it a nice, beautiful kind of transition of color instead of having one color all over. We will highlight this a bit after because it's going to dry darker. Okay, good. I would push in the brush stroke thick, make it a little bit thicker here in this area here. So the best way to do this background is actually to work wet on wet. But for now, see what I'm trying to do is kind of soften these edges. I don't want a sharp edge because I'm going to come back with the color of the building and then put it over. And it could be, instead of having a sharp line, you would have a very soft line, soft lines meeting instead of having, and that will show more of a depth. Objects that are far away don't have sharp edges. You don't see sharp edges. You see more kind of lines blending, lines kind of soft lines in there. So I know that there's a sharp line in here. I went over it a bit, and even here, I know that there's a sharp line. That's okay. I went over it because none of these lines in the back are going to be perfect. There's just going to be a suggestion in the back. So once we finish working on the sky, we'll start working on those buildings far away. Okay, so now we're going to work on the buildings, and we kept those lines where the building meets the sky. We kept them soft, so no sharp edges. Now, I forgot to mention what we used for the sky. It's titanium buff and cerulean blue. So now I have here for the buildings, raw umber, burnt sienna, titanium buff, black, any black, Naples yellow. So we're going to start with a bit of Naples yellow, titanium buff. And we're going to tone that down a bit because it's very, very strong. It's a beautiful color, but it's a bit strong. We're going to tone it down with a bit of raw umber. So make it a little bit more grayish. And we're trying to keep, what we're trying to do is keep the value of the sky and the building in the back close. So meaning that the sky is light. So we're going to keep the building in there, in here, light as well, the same. I mean, if we mix them together, if we do this, you will see that they're between the sky and the building, there's not a lot of difference. Okay, now while I'm doing this, I'm gonna pick up a bit of raw umber, put it in too. So you don't want your colors to be the same from top to bottom. I'm gonna vary, like play around with these colors a bit. Light, darker at the bottom, much more interesting. Again, darker at the bottom here. And overlap a bit with that line in here. So when we put the line of this building here, there's no sharp edge. I'm going to do something here. The rooftop, there's a rooftop in here. The rooftop is, let me just kind of soften this a bit. The rooftop is, it's a grayish brown. So I'm just going to take a touch, very small amount of burnt sienna and put it in the same mixture of the building. And I'm just going to come here and just give it a bit more. A hint. Let's take titanium buff, touch of Naples yellow, very small amount of Naples yellow, and let's put a strong light in here. Keeping the bottom part darker. Acrylic dries darker always, so you always have to go back and adjust the value. Now I know you can see, I can see windows in there. Even on the even that far away, you can see some windows. So what we're going to do We're going to put a suggestion of a window there. Using a round brush. I'm just going to use raw umber. It's a big window, it's dark, I can see it in there, but I'm not putting this, I'm putting a suggestion in here of a window. So this, for me personally, at this point, it looks harsh. So I'm adding a touch of a bit of titanium buff to my raw umber, and that's better. See, that's way better. There's a window in there, but it's very soft. Now there's a light coming from behind that bridge. There's a bridge in the back. It's a nice, yeah, there's this bridge here. There's the light coming from behind that bridge. It's a nice, it's a nice touch, but I wouldn't put too much emphasis on it. And what I'm going to do is push this highlight down. I know we're going to go over this. Keep this, what you're doing right, what I'm doing right now, watery. This is water. So this is layering of different glazing. I know it's not like this in the reference, but we will be working on that after. We will be going back and adjusting. This is a bit too light. It's better. Okay. Now in the back, I can see, I think it's a boat. I am going to ignore that. And the bottom, when we start working on the bottom of the buildings right here, we're going to add a bit more black at the bottom here to darken it. But for now, we're going to keep it just the way it is. Maybe a touch of, with my round brush, raw umber, just a bit. Sometimes, you know, if you look at lines, they do add, enhance. It's a soft line. It enhances the look. Okay, I'm gonna adjust a bit the sky. Because what I did is I actually changed when I did this, I changed the direction of that roof. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next building, which is in the picture. It's kind of the same colors. So since we're working with the same colors, I'm going to push those in. Now, this is titanium buff, a bit of Naples yellow in here. And let's add again a touch of raw umber, because I always like to, I don't like to work with light colors right away. I like to add my highlights on top. So I'm just making my titanium buff, Naples yellow, a bit kind of subdued. I'm subduing the colors. I'm desaturating those colors by using the raw umber, touch of raw umber. All right. That's good. Oh, of course, usually colors are lighter on top and darker at the bottom. In this case, I'm not worried about this for now. I'm just, what I'm trying to do is put these, the colors that I need to put in here first, and then I'll deal with light and dark. I added more of the raw umber in here, side. Sun is coming this way. It's shining on top this way. So let's bring in a touch of raw sienna in here. I'm trying to go back and forth between light and dark. And I'll show you in a minute. I need to do it right now, because if I wait for it to dry, it's gonna create sharp lines. So I know I can see in that reference, I can see a strong, and you'll see in a minute when I start adding a bit of detail, a strong light in here, top. So I'm just using titanium buff. This is like even kind of washed out kind of color because of the strong light. But when I go down, I make sure that it's a tiny bit darker. Okay. There's a balcony there. There are like doors, windows. So we're going to play around with this a bit. Okay, wipe my brush. My round one, I'm going to take raw umber. I like certain details, soft ones. So with this, my raw umber, I'm just adding a touch of darker color in here, just to create movement. So you don't want it to be completely flat. All right, so there's a hint of a balcony in there. So I'm just gonna do this. And in a minute, you'll see what I'm gonna do. Soften this. It's gonna dry darker. I'm gonna put a hint. That's better. Raw umber mixed with titanium buff, but more raw umber in here. Put a door. But you see how soft it is because it's on wet color. So, and then another window here. small one over here. Rooftop. I take raw umber, rooftop. Raw umber and titanium buff. It's not a rooftop, it's the bottom of the roof. There. There's a there's a nice light happening. I'm gonna take titanium buff. I'm watching the light, how it's moving and how it's on sitting on that. Where it stops. I don't have to do exactly what's happening in there, but some movement makes it look much more interesting. See, again, drawing darker because of acrylics. So that's good. So the lines in here are kind of strong but soft. Change the direction of my line. See, this is so dark now up here. I'm gonna work on that a bit and make it softer in a minute. Again. Those values in here are very light. I love this dry brush that's happening in here. Okay, so from here to here, that's too wide. Then take burnt sienna, mix a bit burnt sienna with titanium buff. I'm just going to put it here. Just to change, first of all, soften and make this part slightly smaller, this part. So I'm adding a different color in here. Let's take a touch of blue and put it in here with the titanium buff. And here. Oh yeah, nice. Nice. That brings in the blue of the sky into the building. And I'm just gonna add a bit more blue in here. raw umber. I am not cleaning my brush. I'm just using whatever, I'm putting colors on top of each other. Why? Because this will give me a beautiful gray colors. I'm going to take burnt sienna. Again, let's put some burnt sienna in here. We're starting to see some color, some movement. We're getting closer. More burnt sienna. And I'm going to push my burnt sienna. Okay, let's see how we're going to do this. These are random, really random lines. I'm just trying to add some interest in here. But before I do anything, I want to go back because this thing on top is really bothering me. Just wanna, that's better. Okay, good. Excellent. Let's put all right, bottom part. So the bottom part, I'm starting to see darks in there. So I'm gonna take some black and mix my black with the actual paint I have on my brush, which is lighter. It's just raw umber and combination of raw umber and titanium buff. And I'm just gonna come down here and add a bit of that gray. And I'm gonna stop in a minute. I just wanna finish this part. Burnt sienna. Let's mix some burnt sienna and titanium buff. Okay, that's nice. It's unbelievable how dark the acrylic dries. You put the color first and you think, oh, okay, that's good. And then you look at it when it's dry and it's what? Okay, again, now there's a bridge here and this bridge is in a light burnt sienna. So I'm gonna take burnt sienna and I'm gonna just add it to my brush. I haven't cleaned my brush from any of the stuff I'm using, colors. And you would think that I'm gonna get mud, but I'm not. It's a miracle. And this is the bridge. Now, taking titanium buff, put a line, a highlight on top of that bridge with titanium buff. And most importantly, I'm going to be putting the gray, which is black with titanium buff and a bit of raw umber. And I'm going to put it here, right here. And because this is what I see, I'm seeing the shadow of that bridge on the wall. again. Now, I take titanium buff, and if it's not enough, I'll be adding white later on to get that highlight, but I think it's enough. So, oh yeah, I'm gonna bring my highlight down. And up here. I know it's like really, you can't really see what's happening in there. So trying to create some kind of soft movement in here, but lots of highlights. The highlights are beautiful. It's almost, this is giving me almost like an oil color, oil paint. I'm gonna do same here. And a little bit up here. Lovely. Okay, so before I stop recording, because everything's wet right now and I need that, I'm going to try to pick up some of these colors that I have here. Titanium buff, raw umber. Now I'll be putting a bit of black as well in a minute. And I'm just going to, again, do the same. This is what we're doing right now. It's going to come in handy. It's not that dark that I can't see the boat. I can still see the boat. It's not, I mean, it's not thick, not dark. I didn't mean dark, thick. I can still see the boat. Or the lines I have, and that's why I mentioned using darker pencil crayon or any kind of. So even if I don't want to do the same what I see in there and I want to keep it like that, kind of the water, instead of having the water horizontal, I want it to do it vertical, it will look really good. Okay, now, because all of this is still wet, I'm wiping my brush clean, black, raw umber, because we don't want to use black. I'm going to put black and raw umber together. Raw umber, touch of titanium buff, touch, very small amount. There, it's more like a gray. It's an earthy gray. And I'm going to come here, push down. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a dark lines that looks like they actually, it looks like a reflection. But because my colors are wet, they're blending softly with the water. Let's do that again, one more time. Load my brush. And I'm using the side of my brush, not flat, side. I'm not putting a line between the building and the water. I'm camouflaging this. Because I don't want a sharp line, I want a hint. Okay, now. burnt sienna, titanium buff, I'm going to take more titanium buff. I'm using a round brush because I have more control. And I'm going to do a, actually, I'm going to take a bit of that black as well. So titanium buff, my brush has burnt sienna, and I'm using the gray that I have here. And it gives me a nice kind of gray color. So every time I need the dark color, I'm mixing black and raw umber. Put a bit of a dark in here. I'll wait for it to dry and then I will soften this. Bit of blue. Oh, geez, that's too harsh. Titanium buff. Titanium buff and cerulean. That's better. Let's soften this. Just a bit of titanium buff on my brush, and I'm going to come here and it's unbelievable. You know, acrylic is so harsh. Keep the bottom part. I'm going to try to keep the bottom part of this building dark as much as I can. I don't want it to be harsh dark. Just want to have it darker there. This is titanium buff, touch of titanium buff, black and raw umber. All of this will make sense once we keep on, when we keep on working on the rest of the painting. Right now, we're just looking at one part and it's looking a bit weird. Same, this is just black and raw umber with a touch of titanium buff. Now in the back, there are, like I mentioned before, I think there's a boat in there, in here. There's a boat or several boats. Yeah, there is one. Oh my God. Yes, okay.
There's nobody in it. It looks like it's on the side, right?
Right, yes, yes. Yeah, nobody in it, no. So I'm gonna take black and raw umber. And a bit, I have, again, a bit of titanium buff on my brush. Let's take it from here. Okay, so let's take the first one that I see. And the second one is behind it, and you can see just the three of them actually. one you can see just kind of a bit of a side. The only reason I'm putting these is just because of that dark color that's sitting in there, and it's really nice. So it would look much nicer once we start adding the reflection. Right now it looks stark and heavy. Again, this is a bit empty in there. So I'm going to go in and add a bit of burnt sienna in here just to change the color, and just add a line in there. Okay, so these boats don't look like they're just floating in there, and behind them there's a strong light color, just to blend them in a bit.